Salvete. Today we are going to be doing the Fabula together, the story. This one is called Sedrac, Misac, et Abdenago, Prima Pars. So this is the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And so I think we've maybe talked about before, these were names from the Jews, right? And so Latin was a language that was spoken after. And so they kind of would borrow these names, and they kind of sound odd in Latin because they were a different language. And they'll be spelled a little bit different than you're used to. And then prima pars means the first part. Remember, first is primus, prima, primum. Okay, so we'll start in the first box, of course, and we're going to pay close attention and see if we can find imperatives in this lesson. All right, so Nabucodonosor, statuam auream facit. Remember, we talked about this in the vision. We talked about Nabucodonosor's vision and how Daniel interpreted that vision. And so he had a vision of this giant statue, right? And what happened in the vision? It got smashed, turned into dust, and the rock, which is Jesus, came and took its place and filled the whole earth. So, do you think he learned his lesson from that dream? Nope, he did not. He decided, well, that's a great idea, a big statue. I'm going to build a giant statue of myself, and I'm going to make everybody worship it. So, Nebuchadnezzar, facit, remember that was one of our vocabulary words this week. He made a what? A statuum aureum. He made a statue of gold, or a golden statue. Notice these are both in the accusative cases. And so so the subject, he made a golden statue. And so these are the direct objects because this is what he made. All right, next box. Dinda Nabucodonosor omnes cives imperat. So dinda, that's a special word. It'll be on your list on page 193. So then Nebuchadnezzar, he imperat, he commanded omnes cives. He commanded all the citizens. Okay, so we're going to find out in the next box what he commanded, but if he's commanding, we should be looking out for an imperative, right? Okay, we'll move on to the next box. And the next box, we start with our imperative, right? Adorate. So remember our vocabulary was adorat, he worships. Adorate, so he's saying you worship, you all worship. This is a plural imperative. You all worship the golden statue, aureum statuam. Si vir non adorat, iacete eum in fornacem ignis ardentis. Did you guys spot a plural imperative in there? Something ending with te? It's right here, iacete. So, si vir non adorat, if a man or any man does not worship, does not adorat, so if any man he does not worship, then what? The imperative is to iacete, throw him, eum is him, so you all throw him in fornacem ignis ardentis, in the furnace. That's in the accusative case, so it's a direct object. Throw him in the furnace. Ignis ardentis. And this is in the genitive, and so it's describing the furnace. So in the furnace of burning fire, really hot fire. So throw him in the furnace of burning fire. That's what they were supposed to do to anyone that doesn't bow down to the statue. All right, fourth box, last box on page 191. Said Sedrac, Misac, et Abdenago, statuam non adorant. So said, that's one of our special words, but Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego They did not, non means not, they did not worship, remember from Adarat, the statue. So again, the statue is in the accusative case, because it's a direct object. And Adarat now ends in NT. So Adarant, because this is third person plural. They, all three of them, did not worship the statue. So let's move on to the fifth box on page 192. So we have here, Servi Nabucodonosori dicent. So servi, from servu, servi, this would be the nominative plural. The servants of Nebuchadnezzar, they say. So again, we have an NT ending on our verb dicent, because this is all the servants. All the servants, they say, behold, eke, that's one of our special words, Sedrac, Misac, et Abdenago, statuam tuam non aderant. So again, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they do not worship. That's the same as up here, non aderant, statuam tuam. Tuam is another one of our special words. That means your, so your statue. So they go and tell Nebuchadnezzar, these guys are not worshiping your statue. You guys remember the story of Daniel in the lion's den? Remember how the servants tattled on him too, because he went to his window and prayed, and then they went to the king and said, oh, he's praying and he's not supposed to pray. So these servants of Nebuchadnezzar were real tattletales. But yeah, so they went and they said they're not worshiping the statue. And we'll find out what happens in the next box. And the next sentence is, Nabucodonosor valde iratus est. So Nebuchadnezzar, he is, remember sum est, sumus estis sunt. So est is he is, Nebuchadnezzar is, valde is another special word, very, iratus, which remember was one of our vocabulary words, angry. Nebuchadnezzar is very angry. So the next box, et Nabucodonosor, Sedrac, Misac, et Abdenago vocat. So et, another special word, and Nebuchadnezzar, he does what? He vocats, he calls. Nebuchadnezzar calls Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So Nebuchadnezzar calls Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And then the next box, Nebuchadnezzar says, cur statuam meam non adoratis. So cur is a special word. Why? Why non adoratis? So this is a form we haven't seen for a while. This is second person plural. So why do you all not worship meum statuam, my statue? Meum is another special word in your list there. I believe it's on your list. Actually, it's not on your list, but this just means my. So why do you all not worship my statue? And we'll find out in the next box what they say. And this is what they respond. Sedrac, Misac, et Abdenago respondent. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they respond. Quia, that's a special word. Is it in your list? Yep. Because we worship Adoramus, we worship Solum Deum. Remember Deum from Deus, for God, and then Solum means alone. So because we worship God alone. And this is what he says. Ergo, another special word, means therefore, Nebuchadnezzar, this is another one we saw before, valde iratus est. He is very angry, and et servos suos imperat. His servants, he commands, and what is he going to command them? I'll bet we've got another imperative coming up, right? So he commands his servants, and we'll find out in the last box what he commands them. So this is what Nebuchadnezzar says to his servants. Yakate, we have another imperative. Throw, you all throw, eos in fornacem ignis ardentis. So you all throw them. So remember we had the word aeon, like this, and it just meant him. So this is the plural of that. So you all throw them in the furnace. So this is accusative, so direct object. Throw them in the furnace. And here again we have ignis ardentis, of burning fire. So throw them in the furnace of burning fire. And that is where our story ends today. I know you all know this story, so you know there's more to the story. So next week we're going to do secunda pars, and we're going to find out in Latin what happens in the rest of the story. I do want to point out one thing real quick here. So the plural of, actually here's a good example. So ambulat, when we make the plural imperative, it becomes ambulate. This is actually an English word, ambulate. When someone is walking, you can say that they ambulate. To ambulate is to walk. There's other verbs that we have, and now I'll see if I can remember them. So here's one, celebrate. Okay, this is from the Latin celebro, which means praise. And so if you're celebrating something, you're praising it, or maybe you're just, maybe you're celebrating a person's birthday and you praise them. You praise the good things about them, or you celebrate a great thing that somebody did. And so you notice that this plural imperative, even in English words, is kind of included in those English words. It doesn't mean exactly the same thing. It doesn't mean a plural imperative, but I think it's interesting that even in our English words, this kind of sticks, and it's gotten stuck in some words. There's ambulate, there's celebrate. What's another word? Another one would be create. Okay, so in Latin, creavis means to create, and so our English word create has this te ending as well. So that's just a little tidbit that I thought was interesting. And so that concludes the lesson for this week. And so you can go through the story on your own and write out the translation, and then you can go ahead to page 195. There's the questions about the story, and see if you can answer those questions in Latin and write the answers in Latin. And we'll review that quickly in class as well. All right, I'll end with another imperative like I did in my last video, and I'll say valete.